Jackson's voice cut through the Saturday rush outside Union Station like a thunderclap. I said no. Stop asking me. I'm not being seen with y'all today. Heads turned instantly. The first climax hit right there. Raw, public rejection. His mother froze, holding the hands of her two younger children, as embarrassment washed over all three of them. The boy stiffened. The girl looked at the ground. People nearby whispered, shocked that any man would speak to his own family that way, in broad daylight. Now pause for a moment. The second climax struck when Jackson stepped back and waved them off, as if they were strangers begging him for something they didn't deserve. Across the plaza, Malik witnessed the entire scene. A CEO who didn't expect to start his morning watching a mother's dignity being stepped on. He couldn't look away. And you shouldn't either. Stay with me to see what this CEO does next. It will shock you, and it will inspire you. Before we continue, please take 1 second to like this video and drop a comment. It helps this story reach more viewers. Welcome to Mr. Michael Stories Hub, where America's greatest stories and life lessons meet creativity and heart. If you're new to the family, we're grateful to have you here. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It helps us bring more unforgettable stories your way. Saturday mornings in Washington, D.C., carry their own rhythm. Street vendors set up early near Union Station. Buses hiss as they pull into their lanes. Families stroll toward museums, and tourists gather at crosswalks, deciding which landmark to visit first. The city doesn't shout its energy. It moves with steady motion, a blend of locals rushing to errands and visitors absorbing everything around them. There's laughter, phone chatter, rolling luggage, the hum of traffic, and the warm smell of food drifting from nearby cafes. Union Station's plaza sits like a gathering point for all of this movement. Pigeons hop near fountains, public benches fill quickly, and travelers pause to check schedules beneath the wide arches of the building. People dressed for brunch walk past workers heading to shifts, and the flow feels constant. On this particular Saturday, the air held the same everyday energy, until Jackson's frustration cracked through it like a sudden break in rhythm. Jackson paced in front of his mother and younger siblings with restless steps. His jaw tightened each time someone passed by. He kept tugging at his clothes, as if trying to hide himself. Every few seconds, he scanned the area, as though hoping no one he knew would appear and see him with his family. The irritation in his movements made it clear he didn't want to be there. His mother stood calm but attentive, watching him closely the way mothers learn to do after years of managing emotions that aren't theirs. "Jackson," she said softly, "they just want time with you today. That's all we're asking." Her voice carried no pressure, no accusation, just hope. The boy held onto her hand, and the girl clutched her backpack straps. All three looked toward Jackson with quiet expectation. Jackson suddenly threw his hands up and raised his voice. "I said no. I'm not hanging out today. Not like this. Not with all these people watching." His words were loud enough to cut through the plaza. Conversations paused. A jogger slowed mid-step. A family near the fountain turned their heads. His mother took a small step back, stunned that her adult son would speak that way in public. A woman near the bench whispered, "What in the world?" A man shook his head. A tourist stopped recording the fountain and pointed his camera toward Jackson's outburst. People didn't know the details, but they could feel the sting of what they witnessed. The girl squeezed her mother's arm tightly, her eyes filling with confusion. The boy looked away, lips pressed together, trying not to show how much the words hurt. They didn't cry. They simply folded into themselves the way children do when dignity is threatened, and they don't know how to protect it. Across the plaza, Malik walked out of Union Station holding a smoothie, reviewing emails on his phone. He wasn't looking for anything unusual, but the sound of Jackson's raised voice made him look up. Malik's gaze fixed on the family instantly. The pained mother, the stunned children, and Jackson stepping away from them as if they were strangers. Malik's steps slowed. Something in him locked onto the scene with sharp focus. His expression shifted, not with anger, but with concern, a reaction he didn't plan, yet couldn't ignore. Before we move forward, take a moment to like this video, comment your thoughts, and subscribe. Your support helps bring more meaningful stories your way, and it helps this channel grow. Malik had grown up far from the lively noise of Union Station. His childhood unfolded in a quiet suburban neighborhood where emotional expression rarely appeared in daily life. People kept their voices low, smiled politely at block parties, and discussed achievements more than feelings. His parents cared for him, but affection came in the form of structure, scheduled routines, tidy rooms, and predictable days. Love was present, but it rarely found its way into spoken words or open warmth. By the time he reached adulthood, Malik had learned to succeed in silence. He excelled academically, entered the tech world early, and climbed fast. On paper, he was everything a rising powerhouse looked like: disciplined, sharp, calm under pressure. But inwardly, he often felt disconnected. He admired closeness when he saw it in other families, yet rarely felt part of those environments himself. So when he heard Jackson's raised voice earlier, a different kind of alertness awakened in him, not because he wanted to interfere, but because emotional pain had always fascinated him. It was the one thing his childhood never taught him how to process. He stopped walking, smoothie in hand, and focused on the mother and children. The girl's discomfort, the boy's attempt to appear unaffected, the mother's steady face masking hurt, all of it hit him with surprising force. Malik didn't know them, yet he couldn't look away. Something about the scene felt wrong. Jackson stood off to the side, scrolling his phone, acting as if the earlier outburst meant nothing. His posture shouted avoidance. Malik's eyebrows drew together slightly. It wasn't his habit to judge people, but he had no understanding of how a man could distance himself from his own family in a moment like this. Before the mother could gather her thoughts, Jackson snapped again. "Stop standing there staring at me like I owe y'all something. I told you I'm not doing this today." Several people flinched at the tone. The mother lowered her eyes, not because she accepted the insult, but because she was trying to protect her children from further embarrassment. The boy shifted uncomfortably. The girl pressed her forehead against her mother's arm. The hurt deepened, quiet but unmistakable. Malik felt something in his chest tighten. Without realizing it, his fingers loosened around the smoothie cup. It slipped from his grip, hit the concrete, and splashed across the ground. He didn't even react to the mess he made. The moment symbolized something shifting in him, a move from observer to participant, a silent understanding that staying still was no longer an option. His attention remained fixed on the mother, the children, and the disrespect they had just endured in front of strangers. Malik inhaled slowly. His decision wasn't loud or dramatic. It happened in a single clear thought. They don't deserve this. He took measured steps across the plaza. His walk wasn't aggressive or rushed. It was steady, intentional, respectful. His mind wasn't filled with grand ideas of saving anyone, just the urge to give them dignity that Jackson had loudly taken away. When he reached them, Malik approached carefully, so he didn't startle the children. "Ma'am," he said gently. The mother looked up, surprised. Her first instinct was caution. Strangers didn't usually approach her family in moments like these. Malik offered a respectful nod. "I'm sorry to interrupt. I witnessed what happened." Her eyes flickered with embarrassment. "Sir, we're fine." Malik shook his head lightly. "No one should be spoken to like that. Especially not you and your kids." That sentence struck a chord. The boy's posture loosened. The girl peeked up at him. The mother's expression softened, but she still guarded her emotions. Malik continued, choosing his words with care. "If you don't mind, may I talk with you for a moment? I mean no disrespect." The sincerity in his tone didn't sound rehearsed or forced. It sounded real, something she hadn't heard from a stranger in a long time. The mother didn't answer immediately. She looked at her children. The boy gave a small nod, unsure but hopeful. The girl quietly stepped behind her mother's leg, but kept her eyes on Malik. Finally, the mother exhaled. "All right," she said softly. They walked toward an open bench, away from staring eyes. Her steps carried a mixture of caution, exhaustion, and the remnants of earlier humiliation. Malik followed at a respectful distance, aware that trust with strangers shouldn't be rushed. Jackson glanced over and scoffed, but didn't intervene. He had no idea that the moment he turned his back, everything in his life had already begun shifting. As the mother and her children reached the bench, Malik approached slowly, careful to respect their space. The boy sat first, shoulders still tense, while the girl climbed beside her mother, gripping her arm. Malik crouched slightly, so he wasn't towering over them. "You two didn't do anything wrong," he said with a calm tone. "I hope you know that." The boy stared at the ground, but nodded once. The girl peeked at Malik before whispering, "We just wanted to see him." Malik offered a warm but gentle expression. Wanting to spend time with someone you care about is never wrong. The girl relaxed her grip a little. The boy lifted his eyes, now studying Malik with cautious curiosity instead of fear. His mother remained silent, listening closely to how this stranger addressed her children. After a moment, Malik shifted his gaze to their mother. "Are you all right?" She inhaled slowly, and for the first time since the confrontation began, her shoulders dropped just a little. "I'm tired," she admitted quietly. "Not just from today, just tired." The confession wasn't dramatic. It slipped out because someone finally asked her with sincerity. Years of carrying responsibilities alone showed in her eyes. Holding her family together had never been easy, and Jackson's actions had added another weight she didn't deserve. She brushed her daughter's hair gently, grounding herself. "I try to give them stability. I try to teach them to love family. But days like this," her voice trailed off, not from weakness, but from the exhaustion she had been swallowing for years. Across the plaza, Jackson leaned against a column, scrolling his phone as if the morning's humiliation meant nothing. He wasn't watching them. He wasn't reflecting. He wasn't even aware of the emotional damage he left behind. He occasionally glanced toward the trio and Malik with a dismissive look, but he didn't step in. He behaved as though he had already moved on, unaware that his absence was louder than his outburst. Malik noticed this, and it deepened his sense of responsibility. A man who didn't value his family shouldn't be the one shaping their day. Malik sat beside them, keeping his posture relaxed. "You've carried a lot for a long time," he said gently. "Anyone can see that." The mother blinked, fighting the sudden sting of tears. She wasn't used to strangers noticing her strength, let alone acknowledging it. Malik continued, "No one deserves to be spoken to the way he spoke to you. You didn't deserve that moment, and your children didn't either." The boy looked up fully now. "He wasn't always like that," he said softly. "But lately," he stopped, unsure if he should continue. The mother placed her hand on his back, soothing him. "It's all right," she whispered. Malik nodded. "Even when people change, your family shouldn't be the place they choose to hurt." The girl leaned toward him slightly, her earlier fear replaced by a cautious sense of comfort. Malik didn't offer empty promises or dramatic speeches. He simply gave them presence, the kind of support that steadies a person who's been strong for too long. As they talked, sounds from the plaza continued around them. A go-go beat played faintly from a vendor's speaker, blending with the city's usual buzz. The rhythm was familiar, grounding, a reminder of the cultural heartbeat that shaped many families in D.C. The mother glanced toward the music. "This city raises you loud," she said with a faint smile. "Sometimes it saves you. Sometimes it drains you." Malik listened carefully. He knew D.C. through business, not through lived culture. The stories she hinted at, community gatherings, long weekends filled with music, navigating neighborhoods where strength was a requirement, were worlds he respected but hadn't grown up in. The contrast struck him Her world was held together by community and resilience. His had been shaped by order and emotional distance. As the mother wiped her daughter's cheek, Malik felt something settle firmly inside him. He didn't know the full story behind Jackson's behavior, but he knew a family in pain when he saw one. His decision formed quietly, but with unmistakable clarity. "I'm not leaving you all like this," he thought. He wasn't sure what the next steps would be, but walking away wasn't one of them. Not today. Not after seeing this. He stood with them in the moment, not as a CEO, not as a stranger, but as someone who recognized a family that deserved far better than what they received that morning. Once they settled on the bench, the mother took a steady breath, gathering herself before speaking again. Malik didn't press her. He waited, giving her space. Her daughter leaned against her side, while her son sat upright, trying to appear older than he felt. "My days aren't always like this," she said quietly. "But they're not easy either." Malik listened without interruption. She explained how she worked long hours, how she tried to keep her kids grounded, how rent kept rising while her paycheck stayed the same. She talked about school meetings she attended alone, birthdays she stretched her budget to honor, and countless nights she stayed awake wondering if she was doing enough. Her voice never cracked dramatically. She simply spoke the truth of a woman who carried her family on her back with very little support. As she talked, Malik compared her world to the one he came from. His life had been organized, predictable, steady, a long line of systems designed to prevent struggle. Her life required daily improvisation. She had to adjust constantly, prepare for unexpected obstacles, and manage emotional storms from multiple directions. Where Malik's upbringing taught him how to plan, hers taught her how to endure. The contrast wasn't just different. It was humbling. Malik found himself thinking, if I had lived her life, would I have been this strong? The more she talked, the more Malik noticed the quiet strength in her voice, the softness she used when speaking to her children, the dignity she carried, even after being publicly disrespected. At one point, she brushed a loose curl behind her ear, and Malik felt something shift inside him. Subtle, unexpected. He wasn't searching for that feeling. Yet it appeared naturally, rooted in respect, rather than attraction alone. She glanced at him briefly, catching the sincerity in his eyes. A small, unspoken connection formed, not rushed, not forced. A simple acknowledgement that he saw her, truly saw her, without judgment. Malik had handled countless negotiations and high-pressure meetings, but this moment required a different kind of judgment. He watched Jackson off in the distance, laughing at something on his phone, completely disconnected from the pain he caused moments earlier. Malik felt no urge to confront him yet. Instead, he focused on the family in front of him. He analyzed the situation the way he approached complex problems. Identify what's broken, understand the impact, provide support where it's needed, but unlike business, this wasn't about strategy. It was human. This shouldn't be your burden alone. He finally said, "You've done more than most people could handle." The mother looked down, swallowing gently. "I just want them to feel safe," That's all I've ever wanted." "You're doing that," Malik replied. "But you deserve help, too." Her son shifted closer, just a few inches, as if Malik's presence gave him a sense of stability he hadn't felt in a while. "You really think we're gonna be okay?" the boy asked. "No," Malik said firmly, "and you deserve to be." Her daughter studied Malik's face, then softly said, "You talk nice." He smiled at her. "That's because you deserve to be talked to kindly." The little girl's tension eased. The boy nodded slowly, accepting Malik as someone safe. The mother observed their reactions with a mix of relief and surprise. She wasn't used to anyone stepping in so gently, especially not a stranger. If you're watching this moment unfold, please tap that like button and share your thoughts in the comments. It helps this story reach more people who need messages like this one. And if you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you do. We have more powerful stories on the way. While Malik continued speaking with the mother and her children, Jackson finally lifted his head from his phone. Something about the way Malik sat with them, calm, respectful, engaged, rubbed at Jackson's pride. He straightened himself and walked toward the bench with quick, aggravated steps. "What's all this?" Jackson demanded. "Why you sitting with them like you part of something?" "That's my family." His tone wasn't protective. It was defensive, matching the same posture he used earlier to hide insecurity behind loudness. The mother didn't respond. She simply held her daughter's hand tighter. Malik didn't raise his voice. He remained still, watching Jackson approach with a level gaze. Jackson stepped closer, shoulders high, trying to tower over Malik. "You need to back off," Jackson snapped. "You don't know us." The tension in the air shifted. People nearby perked up again, sensing the conflict returning. Malik slowly stood. He didn't square up to fight, didn't puff his chest, didn't attempt to intimidate. Instead, he positioned himself in a way that made it clear he wouldn't be moved easily. "I approached them because they were hurting," Malik said evenly. Jackson scoffed. "That ain't your business." "It became my business," Malik replied, "when you made it public." The mother's son looked between them nervously. Her daughter pressed her face into her mother's arm. Malik didn't take a single aggressive step. His strength came from steadiness, not force. "You shouted at your mother and your siblings loud enough for the entire plaza to hear," Malik continued, his voice steady. "You embarrassed them. That's why I stepped in." Jackson's jaw clenched. "You trying to make me look bad?" "You did that yourself," Malik answered, without hesitation. The mother blinked in surprise, not at Malik's words, but at how calm he remained while standing up for her. Jackson tried to laugh it off, but it came out shaky. Who do you think you are?" "A man who respects families," Malik replied. His tone didn't waver. His posture didn't bend. He didn't insult Jackson. He simply stated the truth. A small group of passers-by slowed their steps, keeping a respectful distance, but watching carefully. Some exchanged glances, whispering quietly. The earlier embarrassment had left an imprint on the plaza, and people recognized the dynamic instantly. One older gentleman muttered, "He deserves to be called out." A woman near the fountain crossed her arms, murmuring, "Finally, somebody said something." Jackson noticed the eyes on him again. His discomfort surfaced in the stiff motion of his shoulders. He hated being corrected, especially in public. His pride trembled under the weight of attention, but Malik didn't look at the crowd. He kept his gaze firmly on Jackson, not confrontational, but unmoving. "Listen carefully," Malik said, his voice lowering but gaining authority. "Your mother and siblings deserve support, real support. If you won't provide it, then I will." The mother's eyes widened, shocked by the declaration. The boy's mouth fell open. The girl leaned closer to her mother, not afraid, just stunned. Malik continued, "I run an organization that helps families find stability. If she allows it, I will make sure they get the help they need. I won't let them walk away today feeling abandoned." His words hit Jackson harder than any insult could have. Malik wasn't attacking him. He was stepping into a role Jackson had refused. The mother looked at Malik, speechless. She wasn't used to anyone offering support without expecting something in return. Malik added, "No woman should face what she faced today. No child should feel unwanted. So if they're willing, I'll stand with them." His tone carried sincerity, conviction, and something Jackson had never possessed: accountability. Jackson froze, unable to respond. The words lodged in his throat. You can't just take them," Jackson stammered. "They're my family." Malik didn't blink. Family is earned through action, not claimed through words. Several people in the crowd murmured in agreement. Jackson's confidence slipped. His face tightened with a mix of confusion and bruised pride. He looked at his mother, expecting her to defend him. But she didn't. For the first time that morning, Jackson realized he wasn't the one in control. His choices had led to this moment, and now someone else was stepping in where he had stepped away. He whispered, almost inaudible, "This ain't real." But it was. The mother stood in silence, absorbing Malik's offer as the plaza around them continued its usual movement. For her, the world seemed to pause. She didn't respond right away, not because she doubted Malik's sincerity, but because she understood the weight of what he had just offered. Her children looked up at her, their expressions mixed with confusion and hope. Her son's eyes lingered on Malik, and then back to her, silently asking what she would decide. Her daughter lightly tugged at her hand, seeking comfort. The mother closed her eyes briefly. For years she had carried every burden alone, The bills, the schedules, the emotional labor, the countless challenges that came with raising children without consistent support. Jackson's behavior that morning had pushed the weight even heavier. Opening her eyes, she looked directly at Malik. His face held no impatience, no pressure, only concern and respect. She took a steady breath. If you're truly willing to help, then yes, she said softly. We accept. The children reacted first. Her daughter stood a little straighter, her grip loosening as relief washed over her small frame. Her son's tense shoulders relaxed, and he exhaled in a way that sounded like he had been holding his breath all morning. The mother reached for her daughter's cheek, gently brushing away the last trace of embarrassment. Malik nodded respectfully, acknowledging her decision without celebration or arrogance. I'll take care of the arrangements, Malik said. You won't have to worry about anything today. His voice carried the warmth of someone who meant every word. Jackson stumbled backward as if the ground shifted under him. You're just gonna say yes? To him? He asked, his tone trembling between anger and disbelief. The mother turned to him calmly. I asked you for one thing today, just one, and you chose to embarrass us instead. Jackson's throat tightened. Ma, come on. I didn't mean. She shook her head gently. Intent doesn't erase impact, the boy added quietly. We just wanted to see you. That sentence hit Jackson harder than anything Malik had said earlier. For the first time since arriving that morning, Jackson had no comeback, no excuse, no version of the story that made him look better. His pride had nothing left to stand on. You're really going with him? He asked again, softer this time, almost pleading. The mother didn't answer out of spite. She answered out of clarity. Yes, she said, because help offered with kindness is worth more than words thrown at us in anger. Jackson's face fell. He stepped back, speechless, watching the moment unfold without him. Malik turned slightly, gesturing for the family to follow him. Mother gathered, her children holding their hands as they walked together. Her son took one last glance at Jackson before turning away. Her daughter pressed closer to her side, trusting the direction they were headed. Malik walked beside them, not leading from the front like a man trying to take control, but walking alongside as someone willing to support without overshadowing. As they made their way across the plaza, people who had witnessed the earlier scene stepped aside, giving them room. Some nodded encouragingly at the mother. Others sent sympathetic looks. The contrast between their slow, steady exit and Jackson's frozen stance painted a clear picture. The shift had already begun. Malik didn't look back. The mother didn't either. But Jackson did. Watching the family he rejected walk toward someone who treated them with dignity he had failed to give. Once they reached the edge of the plaza, the noise of the station softened into the background. The mother paused briefly, taking a moment to steady herself. Her children looked ahead, trusting the path before them. Malik gently said, "We'll head somewhere quiet first. You all deserve a break from this crowd." The mother nodded. "Thank you." Her voice carried exhaustion, but also a beginning hint of relief, the kind that comes when someone finally steps forward after years of struggling alone. They walked together toward the street, leaving behind the harsh memory of the morning. Jackson remained near the columns of Union Station, watching them fade from sight, realizing too late that he had pushed them away himself. The city continued moving, but for the mother and her children, this marked the end of one chapter and the quiet beginning of a new direction they never expected. Beside them, Malik walked with quiet determination, already committed to helping them find stability, safety, and dignity beyond the plaza they were leaving behind. Malik led the mother and her children through the glass doors of his wellness center, a space designed to feel peaceful from the moment anyone stepped inside. Soft lighting warmed the lobby, and the air carried a faint scent of lavender and citrus. The mother paused just past the entrance, unsure if she should keep walking. Her daughter clung to her side, eyes wide, while her son lifted his chin, taking everything in with growing curiosity. "This place is for families who need support," Malik explained. "You're safe here." The mother nodded slowly, still processing the idea that someone had brought her somewhere meant to help rather than judge. It didn't take long for the children to loosen up. Her son wandered toward a wall filled with colorful murals created by local kids, running his fingers lightly across the painted shapes. "Mom, look," he whispered, amazed by the artwork. Her daughter stepped toward a reading nook filled with small chairs and baskets of books. She hesitated at first, then gently picked up a storybook, flipping it open with quiet excitement. Seeing them explore without fear felt like a breath of fresh air for their mother. For once she wasn't dragging them through a day filled with tension. They were discovering something new, something gentle. The mother stood still for a moment, hand resting on her chest. She had spent so long bracing for disappointment that kindness felt heavy, almost foreign. "You didn't have to do all this," she said softly, her voice carrying disbelief. Malik stood beside her, hands relaxed at his sides. "I wanted to. No one should carry everything alone." Her eyes glistened, not from sadness, but from the sudden release of pressure she had held inside for years. She blinked quickly, trying to steady herself. "It's been a long time since anyone helped us without asking for something back," she admitted. Malik tilted his head slightly. "Good people deserve support, especially people who work as hard as you do." As she looked at him, something inside her shifted. Not dramatically, not romantic in a rushed way, but with the warmth of recognition. He wasn't speaking to her with pity. He wasn't evaluating her. He wasn't standing above her. He spoke to her as an equal, and that alone stirred something she didn't expect. Malik felt the shift, too. The way her eyes softened, the way her voice steadied when speaking to him, the way she seemed to let her guard down 1 inch at a time. It drew him in, quietly but undeniably. He cleared his throat gently, grounding himself. "Let me show something," he said. "There's a room upstairs where families can rest if they've had a difficult day. You're welcome to use it." The way he It wasn't formal. It was thoughtful, and she noticed. As they walked deeper into the building, Malik listened as the mother shared pieces of her life. The loud family gatherings she missed, the music she grew up with, the neighborhood traditions she wanted her kids to experience again. "We used to go to outdoor concerts in the summer," she said with a faint smile. "They loved dancing, especially him." She nodded toward her son, who pretended he didn't hear her, but smiled anyway. Malik laughed softly. "My childhood was nothing like that. We had quiet dinners, quiet neighbors. If someone raised their voice on our street, everyone peeked out their windows to see what was happening." She chuckled. "Where I'm from, if nobody raised their voice, folks thought something was wrong." The contrast between them felt honest, refreshing. Two different worlds, neither better nor worse, simply shaped by different rhythms. Yet somehow, the more they talked, the more their worlds began to feel compatible. A short silence settled between them, not uncomfortable, but reflective. Malik looked at her again, appreciating the resilience she carried. She looked back at him, noticing the sincerity he offered so effortlessly. Neither of them said it aloud, but the connection forming between them was real, gradual, grounded, and undeniable. Later that afternoon, Malik guided the mother and her children toward a modern residential building not far from the wellness center. The lobby was spacious, clean, and filled with natural light that streamed through tall windows. The mother stepped inside cautiously, unsure if this place was truly meant for her. Malik led them to an elevator and pressed the button for the 7th floor. When the doors opened, he motioned them forward. "This is temporary housing my organization provides," he explained. "It's safe, quiet, and fully furnished." The mother hesitated at the doorway of the apartment, but when she stepped inside, her eyes widened. The living room was warm and inviting, with soft gray furniture, a neatly arranged dining area, and gentle lighting that made the entire space feel peaceful. The kitchen gleamed with stainless steel appliances. A hallway led to 2 bedrooms, each prepared with crisp bedding, fresh towels, and small touches like books and toys for the children. Her daughter darted toward the bedroom on the right, climbing onto the neatly made bed with a gasp. "Mom, look at this room," she squealed. Her son walked straight into the other bedroom, opening drawers and inspecting the desk near the window. "Is this all for us?" he asked, disbelief filling his voice. "For now, yes," Malik replied. Her son ran his fingers across the desk surface and whispered, "I've never had a spot like this before." The joy in their voices filled the apartment, bouncing off the clean walls like a melody the mother hadn't heard in a long time. While they explored, the mother stood still in the living room, her hand covering her mouth. The sound of her children laughing should have filled her with ease, yet tears gathered in her eyes. "This is too much," she whispered. "I don't know how to take all in." Malik stepped closer, but maintained a respectful distance. "It's not too much," he said. It's what you and your kids deserve." She shook her head slowly. "We're not used to this kind of generosity. It feels unreal." Her voice cracked slightly, revealing the depth of exhaustion, relief, and gratitude rushing through her all at once. She had spent years holding everything together with limited resources and endless sacrifices, standing in a place where her children could finally breathe, made her heart swell painfully. She turned her face away, wiping at her cheeks with the back of her hand. "I didn't want them to see me upset," she murmured. "They're not seeing you upset," Malik said gently. "They're seeing a mother who fought for them long before I stepped in." She looked at him then, really looked at him, her eyes shining with vulnerability she rarely showed. "You don't understand," she whispered. "Some days I barely hold it together." "Yes," Malik replied softly, "but you still hold it together. That takes strength. Most people will never understand." She exhaled shakily. "I don't feel strong. Strength isn't about feeling powerful," he said. "It's about showing up for your kids even on days when you're tired, overwhelmed, and stretched thin. And you do that every single day." The sincerity in his tone wrapped around her like a warm blanket. No one had spoken to her like that in years. Not as someone struggling, but as someone worthy of respect. Her shoulders dropped, releasing tension she didn't know she was carrying. They stood there for a moment in the soft lighting of the apartment, her breathing slow but steady, Malik watching her with quiet admiration. The air between them shifted gently, not in a dramatic way, but in a subtle exchange of understanding. She noticed how patient he was, how he didn't rush her emotions or try to fix everything at once. He simply offered presence, the kind of presence that made her feel seen, valued, and safe. He noticed the way she steadied herself, even in moments of vulnerability, the grace in her movements, the resilience in her eyes. When she finally said, "Thank you, Malik," the words carried more than gratitude. They carried a small opening, a doorway to trust. Malik felt the shift, but didn't push it. "You don't owe me thanks," he replied. "I'm glad to help, truly." Still, the soft connection lingered, unspoken, yet unmistakably growing. If this moment touched your heart, take a second to like this video and drop a comment below. And if you haven't yet, subscribe to join us for more powerful, uplifting stories that inspire hope, resilience, and compassion. Jackson remained near Union Station long after his mother and siblings disappeared with Malik. At first, he stood frozen, staring in the direction they went. When they were gone from sight, his body finally loosened, and he sank onto a nearby bench. The noise of the plaza continued. Rolling luggage, distant conversations, the sound of buses, but none of it registered. What echoed in his mind instead were his mother's words, the look on her face, and the moment she walked away with another man offering the support he should have provided. His pride had always been his shield, but now it felt more like a cage tightening around him. His heartbeat thudded heavily in his chest, not from anger, but from the realization that his actions had created consequences he couldn't push aside. For the first time in a long while, Jackson wasn't angry at anyone else. Not at the city, not at his responsibilities, not at his family. He was angry at himself. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, staring down at the ground. "How did I let it get this far?" he whispered. He replayed the morning, his irritation, the way he raised his voice, the way the crowd reacted, the pain in his mother's eyes. None of it looked justified anymore. He thought about his siblings, how the girl hid behind their mother, how the boy tried hard to look older but couldn't hide the hurt. Jackson had always told himself he'd make time for them later, that he'd step up when life got easier. But life hadn't changed, and he hadn't changed either. He realized now that he wasn't losing them because of outside circumstances. He was losing them because of choices he made. His mind drifted through the years, missed birthdays because he claimed to be busy, promises to take his siblings out, broken because he wanted to hang with friends instead, arguments with his mother when she asked for help around the house, times he walked away from responsibility because he thought he had time to fix everything later. He remembered the day his little sister asked him why he didn't come to her school event. She had saved him a seat. He told her he forgot, but the truth was he just didn't try hard enough. He remembered when his brother called him after a rough day at school, asking if Jackson could come over. Jackson told him he'd come the next day. He never showed up. Each memory stacked on top of the other until they became unbearable. His irresponsibility wasn't new. It had been building for years. Today was simply the day it finally caught up to him in a public, undeniable way. Finally, the words escaped him. Raw, quiet, almost broken. "What have I done?" They weren't dramatic, but they carried more weight than anything he'd said in months. He covered his face with his hands, not because he was embarrassed, but because he couldn't hide from the truth anymore. If he had just shown a fraction of effort that morning, a little patience, a little compassion, none of this would have happened. He didn't lose his family in one moment. He pushed them away over time, and now someone else stepped in. Someone who treated them with care he had refused to give. The realization hurt, but for the first time, he didn't run from it. He let it land. After a long silence, Jackson stood up slowly. He didn't know exactly what he planned to do next, but he knew he couldn't stay stuck in the same mindset. He looked in the direction where Malik had taken them. He didn't know where they went, but he knew he had to find a way to make things right. His steps were unsteady at first, not from fear, but from determination starting to form, determination he had avoided for too long. There would come a day when he'd have to face Malik. There would come a day when he'd have to face his mother. And there would come a day when he'd have to face himself fully. Today wasn't the day he solved everything, but it was the day he admitted the truth, the day he took the first step toward redemption. He walked away from Union Station, not with confidence, but with something far more important, the will to change. And soon, his path would collide again with Malik's, this time not in anger, but in humility. The days following the family's move were calmer than anything they had experienced in a long time. Morning sunlight filtered into the apartment gently, waking the children with warmth instead of noise or tension. The mother found herself settling into a rhythm she didn't expect. Not relaxed, but grounded. For the first time in years, she wasn't waking up wondering how she would hold everything together. Malik checked on them daily, not out of obligation, but out of genuine concern. He never intruded. He never arrived unannounced. He simply appeared with purpose, carrying groceries, updating her on upcoming support services, or asking how the children were adjusting. The family's world didn't fix itself in a few days, but it finally felt like a world where healing was possible. By the end of the first week, Malik had slipped naturally into their daily life. Her son would often wait near the apartment door around the same time each afternoon, pretending not to anticipate Malik's arrival, but smiling every time he appeared. Her daughter started drawing pictures and leaving them on the kitchen counter, eagerly waiting to show Malik when he visited. Even the mother began to notice that her days felt different when Malik didn't stop by. His presence brought a steady sense of reassurance, not overpowering, not intrusive, just steady. He'd ask things like, "How was school today?" Or "Did you all eat yet?" Simple questions, but meaningful for a family used to carrying every burden alone. Soon enough, the children started requesting his company, asking if he could walk with them to the wellness center, read a page from a book, or simply stay a little longer. Her son took to Malik first. He admired the way Malik spoke with patience and clarity, explaining things carefully without talking down to him. Malik answered every question, from technology to business to how elevators worked, with genuine interest. One afternoon, the boy asked, "When I grow up, can I be a CEO too?" Malik replied, "You can be anything you choose, as long as you lead with respect." The boy repeated that sentence to himself for the rest of the day. Her daughter bonded through small gestures. She'd slip her tiny hand into Malik's whenever they crossed the street, sit beside him quietly during conversations, or show him her drawings with shy pride. Malik kept every picture she handed him, folding them gently and placing them in his briefcase. To them, Malik wasn't just a visitor. He was comfort. He was warmth. He was stability. As Malik spent time with the family, the connection between him and the mother deepened quietly. She would catch him watching the children with a faint smile, admiring how naturally he fit into their routines. He would catch her watching him, appreciating his patience and the sense of calm he brought. Their conversations grew longer, not about hardship, but about life. He shared stories from his career, the lessons he learned as a leader, and moments of growth he rarely talked about. She shared memories of her childhood, the traditions she missed, and the dreams she still held on to despite the challenges she faced. There was no rush, no forced intimacy, just two people meeting each other where they were, step by step, breath by breath. Laughter found its way into their interactions, too. One day, The mother prepared a small meal for the children. Malik tasted a bite and blinked in surprise. I've never had food with this much flavor, he joked. She raised an eyebrow with a playful smirk. That's because you've been eating seasoning that barely counts. The boy burst into laughter. Mr. Malik, you don't know nothing about food. Malik put a hand over his chest dramatically. I'm learning. Slowly. Be patient with me. Another time, Malik shared a childhood story about his quiet neighborhood and how people waved from their mailboxes instead of talking loudly across the street. Her daughter giggled. Your neighborhood sounds sleepy. It was, Malik admitted. Very. In these small moments, the cultural differences between them didn't divide them. They brought them closer, creating a space where curiosity replaced judgment and humor replaced tension. By the end of the week, it became clear to everyone, including Malik himself, that he wasn't just supporting the family. He was becoming part of it. It was late afternoon when the unexpected happened. The mother and her children were returning from the wellness center. Malik walking beside them with grocery bags in hand. The hallway of the apartment building was quiet, filled only with the soft sounds of their footsteps. But as they turned the corner on their floor, they froze. Jackson stood there in the hallway. He wasn't loud this time. He wasn't pacing or puffing his chest. He stood still, hands in his pockets, looking far more nervous than anyone had ever seen him. His eyes darted from his mother to the children, then to Malik. The mother's breath caught in her throat. Her son stiffened. Her daughter hid partially behind Malik's leg. And Malik, he didn't move. His posture remained calm, protective, and steady. Ma, can we talk? Jackson asked, voice low, almost uncertain. The mother didn't respond right away. She studied him carefully, reading his expression the way only a mother could. What are you doing here? She finally asked. Jackson swallowed. I needed to see you. All of you. Her son crossed his arms defensively. Her daughter clung tighter to Malik. Jackson's eyes shifted to Malik, and tension tightened the air between them again. But this time, Jackson made no attempt at hostility. He seemed almost embarrassed to face the man who had stepped in where he had failed. I'm not here to cause trouble, Jackson said quickly. I needed to show up. The mother kept her children close. Malik stood just slightly ahead of them, a subtle barrier of safety. Malik stepped forward, not aggressively, but with quiet command. If you want to talk, he said calmly, you need to speak with respect. No raised voices, no blaming, no cutting her off. Jackson nodded immediately, surprising everyone, even himself. I'm not here to yell. I swear, Malik continued. Then say what you came to say. Clearly, the authority in Malik's tone didn't provoke Jackson. Instead, it grounded him. Jackson looked down for a moment, gathering his words. then looked up again at his mother. "Ma," he began slowly, "I messed up. Really messed up." His voice wasn't defensive this time. It was raw. "I shouldn't have talked to you the way I did. I shouldn't have embarrassed you. Or the kids. I shouldn't have acted like I didn't care." His mother's eyes softened just a little, though her guard remained up. Jackson took another breath. "I've been selfish for a long time, and I pretended like it didn't matter. But it does. I see that now." He looked at his siblings. "I hurt you, and I hate that I did." The boy blinked rapidly. The girl peeked out from behind Malik's leg. Jackson continued, voice trembling. "I don't expect you to forgive me today. I just needed you to know that I'm sorry for everything." The hallway fell silent. Even Malik didn't respond immediately. After a long pause, the mother finally spoke, her voice firm, steady, and honest. "I hear your apology," she said, "and I know it took a lot for you to say it." Jackson nodded, hopeful but unsure. "But here's what you need to understand," she continued. "Words alone won't fix what you've done. You can't show up one day and disappear the next. These children deserve consistency. I deserve consistency." Jackson lowered his gaze. "I know. If you want to be part of our lives," she said, "you start by showing up not just when it's convenient, not when you feel guilty. You show up because you're ready to change." Her son looked at her proudly. Her daughter squeezed her hand. Jackson swallowed hard. "I'll do whatever it takes. I want to be better. I'm not asking for a free pass. I just want a chance." Mother took in his words carefully. She didn't rush. She didn't soften too quickly. But she didn't shut him out either. "We'll see," she said gently. "Forgiveness is possible, but it has to be earned." Jackson nodded slowly. "I understand." He looked at Malik then, not as a rival, not as someone to blame, but as a man he now respected. "Thank you," Jackson said quietly. Malik raised an eyebrow. "For what?" "For stepping in when I didn't." Malik didn't reply with praise or dismissal. He simply nodded once, a gesture that acknowledged the first real moment of accountability Jackson had shown. The mother exhaled deeply, the tension easing just a fraction. She wasn't ready to trust him fully yet. But the door wasn't shut. That small shift mattered. It was the beginning of something new. Not reconciliation, but the possibility of it. As Jackson stepped back, preparing to leave, her son whispered, "He tried this time." Her daughter nodded. Malik listened quietly, recognizing the importance of small beginnings. Forgiveness wasn't granted that day, but the seeds had been planted. And for this family, that was enough to start healing. Later that week, after the emotional confrontation with Jackson, the mother decided to cook a proper dinner for the first time since moving into the apartment. The children were excited, running in and out of the kitchen as she prepared dishes that reminded them of home. Her son set the table carefully, making sure every fork and napkin was placed just right. Her daughter hummed while placing cups on the table, proud of her contribution. As they worked together, the mother paused and thought of Malik, the man who had stepped into their lives with patience, kindness, and respect. She wiped her hands on a towel, glanced at the children, and said, "Should we invite Malik to join us tonight?" Both kids reacted instantly. "Yes," her daughter exclaimed. "He has to come, Mom," her son said. "He's been helping us all week." Their enthusiasm made her smile. She sent Malik a short message inviting him to dinner, half expecting him to say he was too busy. But he replied within moments, "I'd be honored to join you." When Malik arrived, the children ran to the door to greet him. He stepped inside with a warm smile, carrying a small dessert he picked up from a local bakery. "You didn't have to bring anything," the mother said. He shook his head. "It's a blessing to be here." The dinner felt like warmth wrapped into a meal. Fried chicken, seasoned greens, cornbread, and macaroni sat steaming on the table. The mother had cooked with love, and the smell filled the apartment with memories. Malik sat down, looking surprised and appreciative. "I don't think I've ever had a meal like this," he admitted. Her son laughed. "Mr. Malik, this is real food," her daughter added. "You're gonna like it." When Malik took his first bite, he paused mid-chew. This is incredible." The mother couldn't help laughing. "It's nothing fancy. It's perfect," Malik said. "I've never tasted anything with this much heart in it." The kids beamed proudly. Dinner was filled with easy conversation. Malik shared stories from his workdays. The children told him about school, and the mother added small comments here and there, enjoying the harmony at the table. The laughter was genuine, the kind that comes from feeling safe, supported, and connected. After dinner, the kids settled in the living room, playing quietly. The mother stepped onto the balcony, needing a moment of air. The building overlooked a calm street, lit by dim street lamps and the glow of passing cars. Malik followed a few minutes later, standing beside her while keeping a respectful distance. The night breeze brushed past them, and for a moment, neither spoke. "You did a beautiful job tonight," Malik said softly. "Your children seem happier than I've seen them." "They're adjusting," she replied. "It feels good to see them smile again." Malik glanced at her profile, noticing the softness in her expression. "You deserve to smile, too." She let out a quiet breath. "Some days it's easier than others." He nodded. "You've carried so much for so long, but you don't have to carry it alone anymore." She turned to him slowly, eyes meeting his. "I'm still getting used to the idea of accepting help." "I know," he said. "Take your time. I'm not going anywhere." Their eyes lingered on each other longer than either expected. There was no rush, no overwhelming force, just a warm, unmistakable pull between two people who had slowly opened themselves over shared moments. He admired her strength, her quiet resilience. She admired his steadiness, his willingness to step into difficult spaces with compassion. When she looked at him, she no longer saw just a CEO. She saw a man with a gentle heart and steady intentions. When he looked at her, he saw a woman whose courage commanded respect. The spark wasn't loud, didn't need to be. It glowed softly, right there on the balcony, in the space between trust and possibility. Malik reached out slowly and placed his hand on the balcony railing beside hers, leaving only a small space between their fingers. Not touching, just close enough to show intention. The other didn't move away. She looked at where their hands rested side by side and felt a warmth settling in her chest. "You've changed our lives," she said quietly. Malik shook his head. "You allowed me in. That's what changed things." The breeze carried their silence gently, and in that moment they understood each other without needing anything more. It wasn't a grand declaration. It wasn't overwhelming affection. It was emotional closeness. Soft, respectful, and real. The beginning of something neither of them planned, but both felt deeply. The morning after his apology, Jackson stood outside the building where his family now lived. His nerves pulsed through every breath he took. For once, he didn't rush or stomp his feet. He waited quietly, repeating to himself that rebuilding trust would take more than a single visit. When his mother finally opened the door, she didn't smile, but she didn't turn him away either. "Morning, Ma," Jackson said softly. She nodded once. "Morning." Her children appeared behind her, cautiously. Her son watched Jackson carefully, measuring him. Her daughter peeked from behind her mother's leg. Jackson crouched slightly, so his eyes met theirs. "I know it's gonna take time," he said, "but I wanna do things right. Today, I just want to walk with you all to the center." Her son exchanged a look with the mother. She gave a small nod. "All right," her son said, "but no yelling." Jackson let out a breathy laugh. Not mocking, just grateful. "No yelling. I promise." And for the first time in years, mother and children walked beside him without tension. Jackson stayed close, but respectful, listening more than he spoke. As they walked, the children observed him carefully. Jackson didn't try to force conversation. He simply held the door for them, picked up the little girl's dropped keychain, and checked the crosswalk light before stepping off the curb. Small gestures, but meaningful. Her son finally broke the silence. "You really trying this time, huh?" Jackson nodded. "Yeah, messed up a lot before, but I'm here now." The boy studied him for a few seconds, then said, "Will she?" Her daughter took longer to warm up. She stayed close to her mother, but every few minutes she glanced at Jackson with growing curiosity. Near the wellness center, She tugged on her mother's hand and whispered, "Can we let him come inside too?" Her mother hesitated, then nodded. Jackson heard that whisper. It nearly brought tears to his eyes, but he held himself steady. Inside the center, he sat with them quietly, letting the kids guide the interaction. They didn't run into his arms. They didn't suddenly treat everything like it was fixed. But they stayed near him, and that was enough for now. When Malik walked into the wellness center and saw Jackson seated beside the family, he paused. Not suspicious, evaluating. Jackson stood quickly. "I'm not trying to cause trouble," he said. "I didn't ask that," Malik replied. Their eyes met, and the tension that once existed between them softened into something new. Mutual recognition of responsibility. Malik sat across from Jackson, posture steady. "Rebuilding trust takes consistency," he said. "And patience." Jackson nodded. "I'm learning." Malik leaned forward slightly. "Your siblings look up to you more than you realize. Every moment you show up now, every action, tells them who you're becoming, not who you were." Jackson listened with rare humility. "What if I mess up again?" Jackson asked. "You will," Malik replied, simply. "We all do. But what matters is how quickly you correct yourself." Jackson absorbed the words like someone starved for guidance. Malik didn't treat him like a rival or a threat. He treated him like someone worth helping, someone capable of change. The mother watched the exchange quietly, surprised by how naturally Malik's calm influence balanced Jackson's troubled energy. Her son whispered to her, "Mr. Malik talks real smooth." She smiled. "He talks with wisdom." Jackson overheard and didn't object. For once, he didn't feel overshadowed. He felt pushed in the right direction. When they prepared to leave, Jackson looked at Malik. "Thanks," he said simply. Malik nodded. "Keep showing up." And Jackson did, walking beside his family as they left the center together, taking one step closer toward the man he wanted to become. Later that week, after several calm and steady days, the mother found herself thinking deeply about everything that had changed. Malik's involvement wasn't just helpful. It had shifted the direction of her entire life. One afternoon, as the children played in the living room, she approached Malik in the kitchen. He was wiping down the counter after bringing groceries. "Malik," she said softly. He looked up, sensing a different tone in her voice. "I need you to know something," she continued. "I haven't had support like this in I don't even know how many years. You stepped in when things were falling apart. You showed compassion when we needed it most. And you didn't have to." Malik paused, the cloth still in his hand. "I didn't do it because I had to," he said. "I did it because your family deserved better than what happened that day." She nodded slowly. "You've changed our lives." There was no exaggeration in her words, only truth. The conversation naturally shifted as they moved to the balcony, the same place where quiet understanding had formed before. Evening light washed over them, painting the sky in warm shades as they stood side by side. "I've spent so many years trying to survive," she said. "Trying to make sure my kids had enough, trying to hold myself together so they wouldn't worry. But you," she paused, searching for the right words, "you brought peace into this home." Malik looked out over the street below. "I didn't grow up with the kind of strength you have. My childhood was structured, quiet, almost too controlled. Seeing how you raise your children, with love, with culture, with heart, it taught me something." She tilted her head slightly. "Taught you what?" "That love isn't always quiet," he said. "Sometimes it's loud. Sometimes it's messy. But your version of love, it's real." Her breath softened. "You see me in a way most people don't." Malik turned to face her fully. "I see a woman who has carried more than most people ever will, and still finds a way to smile for her children." She met his gaze, feeling a warmth rise in her chest. "You're different, Malik. Not just because of what you've done, but because of who you are." Their conversation deepened the connection already forming between them. Not forced, not rushed, but emerging naturally from every shared moment. Silence settled briefly between them, but it wasn't uncertain. It was charged with the unspoken truth both had been carrying. Finally, Malik spoke, his voice lower now. "I care about you," he said plainly, "about your children, about you as a woman." Her heart fluttered unexpectedly, but she stayed steady. "I care about you too," she whispered back. "More than I expected to." Malik took a small step closer, not invading her space, but reducing the distance between them in a way that felt intentional. "I don't want to rush anything," he said, "but I want to be honest. Being around you, it feels right." She felt her cheeks warm. "I didn't think I'd feel something like this again," she admitted. "Not after everything life has thrown at me." Malik smiled gently. "Sometimes new beginnings come when we least expect them." For the first time, neither of them hid what their hearts had already realized. Their hands rested on the balcony railing, only inches apart. Malik didn't reach for her hand immediately. He respected her pace, her history, her boundaries. But she looked down at the space between them, then slowly shifted her hand closer, allowing her fingers to brush the back of his, a soft, fragile contact, yet meaningful enough to send a warmth through both of them. Malik turned his hand, gently letting his fingers rest beside hers. Their hands didn't fully intertwine. Instead, they found a quiet closeness that matched the pace of their growing bond. "You make me feel safe," she whispered, looking up at him. "You make me feel grounded," he replied. The night breeze moved around them, lifting a strand of her hair that Malik resisted the urge to brush away. Respect came first. Intention followed. Inside the apartment, the children laughed at a cartoon playing on the TV, their joy echoing faintly through the open door, a reminder that this connection wasn't just between two adults, but an entire family finding new light after hardship. Malik took a slow breath. "Whatever comes next," he said, "I want it to be something we build together." Slowly, honestly, she nodded, her voice soft but firm. "I want that, too." Their shared admission didn't need anything more. No dramatic gesture, no overwhelming affection, just truth and the quiet beginning of love that both of them had once believed might never arrive. In the weeks that followed, Jackson committed himself to change. Not dramatic change, not a sudden transformation, but steady, intentional growth. He showed up at the wellness center regularly, offering to help with small tasks or to accompany his siblings through their activities. He listened more, talked less. He stopped making excuses for his past and instead focused on his present actions. His siblings noticed. His mother noticed. Even Malik noticed. Jackson's progress wasn't perfect. Some days were harder than others, but every time he stumbled, he corrected himself without being asked, proving his effort was genuine. Slowly, the children began to loosen around him. Her son eventually sat beside Jackson one day and said, "You're doing better." Jackson managed a small smile. Her daughter offered him a drawing she made, a picture of their family standing together, and Jackson nearly cried when he saw himself included. For the first time in a long time, he felt worthy of being part of their world again. The children flourished in the stability Malik had helped create. They laughed more, slept better, and walked through their days with confidence instead of uncertainty. Her daughter carried her drawings everywhere, showing them off proudly. Her son became more expressive, eager to share his thoughts and dreams with both his mother and Malik. The home felt different, warm, balanced, filled with hope. The mother watched her children with pride, knowing they were finally living in an environment that nurtured their spirits. The security they felt wasn't just about the apartment or the resources. It was the presence of consistent love from their mother, from Malik's steady influence, and from a slowly healing Jackson. Malik soon blended so deeply into their routines that it felt as though he had always been part of their lives. He drove the children to school when the mother worked early mornings. He attended family meetings at the wellness center. He shared meals with them at least twice a week, each time learning more about their traditions, their humor, and their dreams. Her son often asked Malik questions about leadership and business. Malik answered every one with patience, planting seeds of confidence in the boy's mind. Her daughter frequently reached for Malik's hand when they walked together, trusting him without hesitation. And the mother, she found herself looking forward to the moments Malik's schedule allowed him to visit. His presence brought peace. His voice brought calm. His heart brought something she hadn't felt in many years, reassurance, with support surrounding her. The mother began to reclaim parts of herself she had set aside out of necessity. She started attending classes offered through the Wellness Center, financial planning workshops, career training sessions, and community leadership gatherings. For years, she had survived. Now, she began to rebuild. Her confidence grew in ways her children noticed immediately. They saw her standing taller, speaking with more certainty, and smiling with genuine joy. One afternoon, while organizing her paperwork, she looked around the apartment and whispered, "We're going to be all right." And for the first time in a long time, she fully believed it. One quiet evening, after the children had fallen asleep, Malik and the mother stepped onto the balcony once more. The street below was calm, glowing faintly under the streetlights. They stood side by side, their shoulders almost touching. "You've changed our lives," she said again, but this time her voice carried a deeper meaning. "You changed mine, too," Malik replied. He turned slightly, looking at her with a mixture of admiration and tenderness. She met his gaze with equal honesty. This time, she didn't hesitate. She reached for his hand, interlacing her fingers with his. Malik held her gently, his thumb brushing her knuckles in the softest gesture of affection. No rush, no uncertainty, just two hearts acknowledging what had quietly grown between them. A new chapter, one built on healing, trust, respect, and love, had begun. Love grows where kindness is offered without expectation. Family is strengthened not by perfection, but by accountability and compassion. Healing begins when someone steps forward with sincerity. Everyone deserves a second chance, but only if they work for it. Support can transform lives when given with humility and respect. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, and subscribe to Mr. Michael's Stories Hub. Your support helps us continue sharing meaningful stories that inspire, uplift, and remind us of the power of compassion and second chances.